All right, so as predicted, the government shutdown has came to an end. I'm so happy to see that. I hope that most people that have been struggling through this time are able to get some sort of relief. I hope that the rallies go exponentially higher. I hope Bitcoin goes back to all-time highs. And with that, I want to get into this content and give you guys a update because it's very time sensitive. So make sure you subscribe, smash the like button, and turn on bell notifications. Everything is obviously very time sensitive in this very fast moving market that is Bitcoin and crypto. So basically, Bitcoin has been going down only against like stocks, real estate, well, real estate also too, if I'm being honest. But gold is also making a comeback. We have the dollar kind of consolidating. It looks like it wants to go a little bit higher, which is not what you want to see. But basically, to give you guys a little bit of a summary, the government shutdown pretty much translated to very low liquidity within the cycle, and we can always pretend that Bitcoin does whatever it wants. It really lives and dies right now based off of liquidity, and I think that we live in this very weird time where we have institutions and governments trying to accumulate Bitcoin, but then we also have these OG whales that are just selling billions and billions, while Binance is also just pushing the sell button. And so it's really underwhelming to see the price action, but I do think that with this whole government shutdown behind us, we're going to go into a pretty much like business as usual. So I think that quarter four is going to be really bullish. I would love us to see basically testing about the 106 to $107,000 range for Bitcoin. I think if we can hit that, consolidate, I think it's pretty sure that we're going to go at least to 115, maybe even all-time highs within maybe like a month or two. That's going to remain to be seen, and if anything changes, I'll obviously update you guys. But that's kind of what I'm looking for in the bullish case scenario. And I am still of the opinion that quarter four and Q1 is going to be pretty much like the meat of the bull cycle. And I do want to just caution you guys going into next year. I think that there is a good possibility that we're going to go into some sort of like recessionary, like bearish trend. And so I really wanted to caution you guys because when it comes to taking profit, that's one thing that I noticed that nobody really knows how to do effectively. And I think that this whole time has taught you guys, what if I would have taken profits? I'd have so much more money to allocate, or I just feel so much better. Because if you're like me, you're just like staring at charts and just saying like, oh, I could have had this much money, or I should have sold here, I should have longed or shorted, and everything is, hindsight's 2020. And the only thing you can do from these crypto cycles is continue to get better and learn how to mitigate your risk and be prepared for a bullish and bearish case. So I would really try to look for kind of like some profit taking. So I'm not really of the opinion that all these altcoins are going to go back to their previous all-time highs, but I do think a select few will. And at that point, I would caution you guys to maybe just consider taking something off the table. Usually it's like maybe your initial investment plus like, whatever you would be spending in taxes or whatever the case may be, so that at least you've mitigated enough of your risk to where if we go into this bearish trend, then you're not going to be hurting as much as you just would holding on to everything, right? And watching that go down like 50%. And also, I want to point your attention to the price action of Bitcoin this entire cycle. Everybody pretty much got tricked just going into altcoins thinking that this was going to be like previous cycles and everybody's going to get rich off these altcoins, but that hasn't been the case. And pretty much Bitcoin has gone from like what, $15,000 to about 125, and I do think it's going to go higher if we continue to stay bullish. And so that's a pretty valuable lesson because a lot of people would have done just a lot better just holding Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, that's pretty much what you want to accumulate anyway, because every single 4-year cycle, there's new like main characters when it comes to altcoins, but Bitcoin is always going to stand the test of time. And I think it's the only true crypto that's going to be here to stay. So keep that in the back of your mind. Now, bearish scenarios. I don't want to just leave you guys with just only like up only, hopium, whatever. So I really need us to pretty much stay above $98,000. That's kind of like my base case because that's a 50-week moving average. And that's pretty much going to set us up for like the weekly patterns. And so I think if we can, on a weekly basis, stay up above the $98,000, I think that that's still pretty bullish short term. And in the crazy scenario where we start going down and down and down, I think that, obviously the $75,000 range is pretty pivotal when it comes to just maintaining this whole like bullish trend. But that's going to be more so like on a monthly time basis. And frankly speaking, I think if we start losing $98,000, you should probably look to cut some of your positions anyway, because you don't really want to hold from like $98,000 to wait for confirmation to hit $75,000 on Bitcoin, because if that's the case, most of your altcoins are going to go down way more than that, and I do not want you guys to lose money. So to wrap all this up, my summary is that basically the US government is going to allow for more liquidity going into the system. I think that, obviously Trump is talking about this $2,000 stimulus check, which historically speaking has been pretty good for markets. Usually whenever government shutdowns end, Bitcoin tends to surge a lot. We have a hopefully dovish Jerome Powell going into December because he kind of gave us some like mixed signals saying that rate cuts aren't for sure. But I would pretty much bet that that's pretty much a given. I think we're at least going to get 25% rate cuts, maybe 50, but I would lean more towards 25. And I think if we can start adding assets onto our balance sheet and going into quantitative easing, obviously that'll start around December, but there's a little bit of a lagging indicator when it comes to that. But typically what happens is these markets try to sniff this out and they kind of price things in advance. So I think just the start of that would start driving more liquidity into the Bitcoin cycle. And I think that's going to fuel for a mini, if not massive, altcoin season. So that's my little update. I hope you guys are doing well. Smash the like button, share the video with a friend, turn on bell notifications. Everything I say here is time sensitive. I will see y'all soon.